And if you're doubting whether this will be fun, think about this. In 2023, I went to my ward convention and I video recorded a melee. So how fun is that?
We're rolling. We're rolling.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Okay, we're back on the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. And today my guest is Josh Martin, everybody's favorite pundit.
Hello.
And campaign treasurer. I don't usually do ads on the Wedge Live podcast, but let me do a plug for buying Josh Martin a wedding gift. If you've appreciated his political coverage through the years or his campaign treasuring, buy him a wedding gift because he's off the market officially.
It's true.
Minneapolis' most eligible pundit. Josh Martin is off the market. Let me run down what we're going to talk about here today, because the first thing we're going to talk about is going to put off all of our listeners. They're going to shut down their podcasting app as soon as they hear. We're trying to get people aware of caucusing, demystify it, stress the importance of it in an election year. But we're also going to talk about fun stuff. There's the Andrea Corbin, the Republican donor who is running a PAC, a local PAC in Minneapolis, ostensibly to get out the turnout to the DFL caucus, but she's a Republican donor. There's that story. There is the violence interrupter who threatened violence and didn't have his contract pulled. But some breaking news here, he has had that contract offer rescinded by the mayor because one of his violence interrupters got involved in a shootout. Some indiscriminate, dozens of shots fired indiscriminately in the midst of a shootout. So we'll talk about that. We'll do a candidate rundown. We'll talk about the plagiarism story in Ward. What ward is that? Ward 9. There's a plagiarism story. Yep. A candidate has, once again in Minneapolis, a candidate is plagiarizing a website. We're going to talk about that. First, the importance of caucusing. Josh, when I talk about this, I want to stress how simple this is. It's going to take a while. You're going to have to spend some time sitting around. But it's hugely important because you're going to be one of hundreds of people potentially in your ward.
Correct.
There's 13 wards in Minneapolis. You will be one of a few hundred if you become a delegate at the caucus night who decides, who's got a little bit of a boost going into this year's city council election. Also, if there's a city delegate slot open, go for that too, because you're going to have a big say in who gets a boost as far as mayoral candidates or park board candidates.
Yeah, and if you want to talk to the candidates about the issues that are important to you, there is no better way to do that than to become a delegate. You will be the most important people in the world to them for a few months. And they will really want to talk to you, and they will find you.
They will call you on the phone, and they'll be like,
come to your door
and say, what's important to you? They will woo you. It'll be like Valentine's Day for politics. They will do anything to win you over. And so if there are things in this city you care about, I care a lot about transportation and housing, and it's such an opportunity to be able to talk to the people who make these decisions and have them cater to you. You're just like the ultimate lobbyist when you become a delegate. And you may have to invest a little time. What I guarantee you is you do not have to acquire special knowledge to do this. You
Correct.
Do not have to go to a training. You don't have to be like Josh and learn parliamentary procedure. You don't,
yeah.
90% of the time, if you're like me, I barely know what's going on, and I've been going to these things for years. You don't even have to know what's going on from moment to moment zone out.
It's really true.
Just kind of keep an ear out. If there's something important happening, like a vote, this goes for caucuses and conventions. Somebody hands you a piece of paper and says, we're voting now. You'd be like, okay, I'm going to put down my phone. We are voting now. It's just a time investment. And I apologize to you if you have kids and people you care about, that you need to sacrifice this time to be away from them. But that's literally all it's going to cost you. There's hardly any mental energy about this. It's simply, can you spare the time on caucus night, or like potentially a very long time for a convention? But we'll get to that when we come to it. Just, you're out there, you're attempting to become a delegate. It's very important this year. And Josh, can you tell our listeners when the caucuses in Minneapolis will be happening?
Yes, the caucuses will be the evening of Tuesday, April 8th. Registration will start at 6:30, and the caucus will be called to order at 7 p.m.
And they're saying, the Minneapolis DFL is saying it could be helpful if you pre-register on the website. Even if you're going to be attending, fill out the non-attendee form just to smooth things along.
That's correct, and this is a little confusing to people. It's called the non-attendee form to meet the state party requirements. So if you don't attend, then it is the non-attendee form. And if you don't attend and you would like to be a delegate, then you definitely need to fill it out. But even if you are going to attend, it is highly recommended to still fill out the form. That serves two purposes. One, it speeds up data entry on caucus night, because if you don't sign up ahead of time, then you will have to sign up on caucus night itself. That will take longer to get people through the line, and it also means a bunch of people need to type in your information later. If it's all entered into the computer already, much quicker for everyone. Secondly, sometimes things happen. Things might come up and you think you'll be able to attend the caucus, and then the last minute you won't be able to make it. If you already submitted the form, you're already good to go.
And if you're doubting whether this will be fun, think about this. In 2023, I went to my ward convention and I video recorded a melee. So how fun is that?
I don't know if that's the best way to sell caucuses and conventions to people. There probably will not be a melee.
Probably not. Unlikely to be a melee that shows up in the Daily Mail disparaging Minneapolis.
We unfortunately can't guarantee that there will not be a melee, but it is unlikely.
You know where there won't be a melee this year, Josh, is Ella Baker School in the Wedge, because the DFL got banned from holding conventions because of last time's melee.
Yeah.
So we can guarantee at least one place there won't be a melee. It makes me wonder, where is a Ward 10 convention going to happen if not Ella Baker School? That's where it's always been, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure the Ward 10 convention or caucus location has been posted yet. It has not been. I've heard some rumors of different possibilities, Whittier. But it's not. I think Whittier is one of the possibilities that was mentioned.
Well, enough caucus talk. We don't want to force people to tune out. Let's talk about the Republican donor who is chairing the PAC to ostensibly turn out DFL caucus goers. So they sent out a candidate. I had fun with the candidate survey that they sent out today. Had a few candidates send the link to the Google form that they're sending. Councilmember Jason Chavez refused to participate because Andrea Corbin is a Republican donor. The questions are very slanted. I feel like they're trying to set traps for candidates. A lot of yes, no, multiple choice, no space for elaboration. There's one that's rank from 1 to 10 how progressive you are. And I can't tell if that's a trap question or trying to allow moderates to self-identify as very progressive. Don't know what that's about. She's pals with Carol Becker. Andrea Corbin's been involved in local issues increasingly over the last year or so, like fighting against the Lindale Avenue reconstruction, fighting against a recuperative care facility in Uptown for homeless individuals. What else? I once saw her at the state capitol, like hanging out with Carol Becker, fighting against statewide parking reform. So she's become quite a gadfly over the last like year or 18 months in local politics, and like now she has a PAC. And I was going to write her off as kind of just a random crank. Like she started a business organization too recently. It's like the kind of person who's just like starting new orgs, kind of a crank, and like wants people to think it's not just me. I started this org, so it can't just be me. It's a whole organization that has these opinions, not just me. But I saw a photo of Joe Radinovich in a We Love Minneapolis t-shirt. That's the name of her PAC. At a We Love Minneapolis podium, at a We Love Minneapolis event. Like, well, whoa, the mayor's former campaign manager is involved. I guess this is
and Don Samuel's campaign manager.
Also Don Samuel's former campaign manager getting involved. So I guess we have to lend some credibility that this is the latest so-called moderate PAC in Minneapolis run by a Republican donor. Now she says she's also donated to Democrats, but she donated to 2 other Democrats, and it was after her Republican donation. She donated to the state of Minnesota Republican Party. She's donated to Rainville and Fry in the months after. So she's MAGA at the state and federal level, and then pragmatic DFL at the city level is how I would characterize that.
And it's possible there are earlier city donations that we're not aware of.
Right.
The like earlier iterations of the city campaign finance reports are not easily searchable.
Yeah, but she says she was not at all political until the last 18 months, right? Isn't that one of the things she says? And so unlikely that you would have been making donations. I just feel like 2024 is a hell of a year to start making donations to the Republican Party of Minnesota. I went on their form to see what it looked like, their donation form, because she donated $260.25. And the way you end up with that total is if you go on their version of Act Blue on their website, it links you to a form where it's like, check this box to pay the processing fee. And so she used that form, and it's very Trump-heavy language. If you have not been on the Minnesota Republican Party website in the last 15 years, you might be shocked at how Trumpy the Republican Party has become, or maybe not. Maybe nobody would be shocked at how Trumpy the Republican Party has become lately. It's just 2024 is a hell of a year to make a donation to the Republican Party. Although she says it was for a ticket to an event, a GOP event that she went to with a date. The explanation she has provided is that she was at some sort of business networking event that was hosted by the Republican Party. Okay. You know what? I have always said, Josh, that we're all Democrats here in Minneapolis. Why are we fighting? Right. We're all Democrats here.
We're all Democrats here.
But I think if you made a donation to the Republican Party in 2024 of all years, you get to be called out for the fact you're chairing a PAC that is turning out voters to a DFL caucus. Like I'm not crazy here. Some people are trying to be cute and they're criticizing Councilmember Chavez like, oh, you won't talk to Republicans? How dare you? It's like, we get to exclude, if you're a Democrat, you do get to exclude Republicans from your party processes.
Correct.
And maybe
I don't think we would be welcome at Republican Party events.
Also, Corbin showed up at a Katie Cashman event recently and was like serious, not just disagreeing with the council member, but like heckling her in a serious way, to the point that Cashman like called her out by name on social media, which I was surprised by. I think Taylor was there and has talked about it a little.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I wasn't there, but I've heard about it from Taylor.
Have you enjoyed the headlines recently about the violence interrupter who threatened violence?
They have been entertaining headlines, certainly. And yeah, looking at the story, it's pretty wild seeing it all written out.
So the story is Violence Interrupter. A couple of weeks, last month, Reverend McAfee from North Minneapolis showed up to a council meeting to berate and throw around what has been interpreted by many to be gay slurs, calling one or more council members a girl for what were they being girls about? I forget. Not responding to him. I forget why he called them girls.
I think he said something about like you're going to cry. I don't recall the details now.
Oh, it was one of the things where the bully is like bullying you and then makes fun of you for how you react to the bullying. That kind of thing. Okay. So really mature guy, definitely not a child at all. Didn't act like a child there at all. Making threats. He did a live stream afterwards where he said he wouldn't do any shooting unless he had to. He said he's going to open a can of whoop ass on these council members. He pledged to make sure certain council members were not reelected. And you would think that would disqualify you from getting a city contract, making a fool of yourself like that, let alone the threats, let alone the name calling and the alleged homophobia. You would think would disqualify you from getting a city contract for violence interruption. It didn't. He was up for that contract until this morning, when two of his violence interrupters were arrested for their role in a shootout last week. And to be clear, it sounds like they were getting shot at and returned fire.
Correct.
And the reason they were arrested is just the indiscriminate way in which they fired back. They couldn't see. The shooting had stopped, apparently, is what I get from the Star Tribune story. And they continued to shoot. They couldn't see what they were shooting at. Their story did not match with what they had told the police initially, because I guess there's video of it. So you'd think maybe this is self-defense. Apparently it goes to recklessness and I forget what the charge was, Josh. Do you remember?
Reckless discharge of a firearm within city limits is what the article says.
If I was going to take the contract away, I would have taken it away over just like the public behavior of the guy in charge, McAfee. So it's surprising to me that it had to be this story about the shootout that caused Mayor Fry to withdraw the contract.
Well, and I believe even the news of the shootout, like that didn't just drop this morning. Like that's been out for a few days too. There were like additional details that dropped this morning. But
the details about the recklessness. This just emphasizes, I see this as part of a theme, Josh, about the mayor becoming involved with people he shouldn't be. Like, if you're friends with the mayor, we will send you this contract regardless of these obvious red flags. That you could think about Operation Underground Railroad. Apparently, he had reason to believe this is a friend. We'll send them a contract, which was rescinded in the last month or so. Going to bat for feeding our future with talking points provided by the ringleader of the fraud. Having an aide in the mayor's office who was profiting off the food fraud. Like, I'm not saying Fry had personal knowledge of wrongdoing here, but the fact that he is continuously involved with bad characters tells me he is at least so transactional that he has no standards for who he will get in bed with. And so you end up getting in bed with a lot of questionable characters. And to top it off, the degree to which Fry and his community safety commissioner were accusing the council of playing favorites with city contracts when it seems clear that no, the shoe is on the other foot, it's kind of infuriating.
Well, it is particularly interesting, especially after he was accusing the council of like choosing only their friends of who gets contracts. But it there seems to be some evidence that maybe that's happening on the other side of City Hall.
And so one of the reasons that McAfee showed up to City Hall to berate the council and threaten them was he was defending ex-director of neighborhood safety, Luana Nelson Brown, who the Star Tribune has reported gave a no-bid contract to an ex-boyfriend, among other problems under her leadership. She was lifted up in a lot of the TV news coverage as if she was a whistleblower. I mean, that story could have easily been, why does the mayor have such a problem finding people to work for him who aren't steering contracts to their friends? But it got turned around that that's what the council was doing.
Yeah, it was an interesting development the way that all went down. I think everybody was ready for a showdown at committee today. And then this morning, the mayor's administration just kind of quietly withdrew the request for that particular contract.
Yeah, I was actually going to go. I was going to go down and watch it all happen, because it seems like every time this comes up, the shit hits the fan with on this topic. And I didn't go, and the shit hit the fan anyway, because apparently people showed up and Al Flowers was shouting at a city council candidate in the lobby area. So the plagiarized website story.
Sure. Yeah.
I was getting into it with you and Taylor in the group text.
Correct.
About you were both saying, well, this looks like a more credible candidate than the guy who ran in Ward 9 last time and is running again, Dan Orban. Mm-hmm. I'm like, now, Dan Orban is one thing, but this guy, what is his name? The guy, the plagiarist guy?
Marquez Jones.
Marquez Jones. So he's a firefighter. He's a plagiarist. His website steals text from a Ward 11 candidate, Jamison Whiting's website. Is it the how to caucus section? And it includes, correct, he did not delete Jamison Whiting's name from the plagiarized text. So he's just on his website talking about caucusing, and it mentions a totally different candidate in a different ward where the text was copied from and put on Marquez's website.
Nothing was changed. It was telling people to attend the Ward 11 convention on the Ward 11 convention date and to support Jamison Whiting at Caucus. And it actually linked to a form that would send your information to the Jamison Whiting campaign saying you would support them at the caucuses.
And you and Taylor were acting like, oh, he'll get past this. He has the makings of a serious challenger. I can't get past this, Josh. He's a firefighter. I don't want him to be employed by the city, because this level of lack of integrity plus lack of competence, it's very alarming to me. He should not be able to get past this. He should have his photo framed in the Mickey Moore Clown Candidate Hall of Fame, is what I think. He should never be able to live this down. I don't care if voters have short memories and will never hear about this. And I know he's probably going to lose anyway because it's Ward 9, and he probably is not going to have a platform that appeals to voters in Ward 9. But I think if all of Minneapolis endorses him, whoever endorses him should not be able to live down the fact that he is a plagiarist who is not competent enough to scrub the other candidate's name from the text he copied from that other candidate's website to put on his own. Not live it down.
Yeah, and honestly, my initial thought when this happened was, oh, this must have gone live before it was intended to.
Me too.
Taylor or I found this. They were still working on it. That would maybe be understandable.
Also bad, though. It means the placeholder website was something you stole and you needed to rework it to hide the fact. They needed to
rework it. But it turns out that is not true. He did send out an email today linking to this website with the page about attending the Ward 11 convention to support Jamison Whiting.
And you know what I think that he's going to say? He's going to say, I had a volunteer who screwed up and this kind of slipped through the cracks. I don't accept that answer because websites are important pieces of communication that campaigns produce. And it's not one person. It shouldn't be one person. The candidate should review it. Not only the candidate, you should be sending it out to your trusted advisors to say, look at this. You see any mistakes here? See anything that should be changed? And so even if he tries to put this off on one person, that's not how campaigns are run. And if he's going to
or at least not if it's a well-run campaign.
Right. And it goes to, he will not trust good people and he will not check the work of his people. So this is not just a plagiarism story that we can get past, Josh. Shame on you for thinking it was. I think he needs to go away forever, is what I say.
My only counterpoint is that this guy, despite his website challenges, is a firefighter, which I think would be appealing to some people.
Josh,
and the other candidate opposing Jason Chavez is Dan Orban. Dan
Orban, Hungarian dictator Dan Orban. So if you could see in the background, if you're listening, you can't see in the background of Josh's video feed here. He's got a Minneapolis firefighter calendar on the wall.
Incorrect. Lies.
I can't believe the lengths you will go to defend firefighters. I'm tired of firefighters in local politics. I really am. This is going to get me canceled by the firefighters union, but not pleased with Rucker on the park board and this plagiarism guy. Not happy with him either.
I would like the firefighters union to know on the record that I stood up for the firefighters here. Right. So just think about that when you're thinking about the candidates I work for.
I'll say this, just another tool of Brian Rice, the firefighters union, just another tool of Brian Rice. So are we ready? Is there more news that we need to cover, Josh, or should we go to our candidate rundown, our patented candidate rundown that we do every pre-caucus episode?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Did you want to talk any more about the mechanics of the caucus, or are we sticking with your plan of just go there and figure it out?
I don't want to scare people, Josh. I don't want people to think it's more complicated than it is. You really should just show up on date.
April 8th.
April 8th at 6.
Sometime between 6:30 and 7 p.m.
And go to minneapolisdfl.org and see where you caucus. We need to keep it as simple as that, I think. What tips were you going to offer? What do you think is important to know?
Well, apparently nothing's important to know, so that's fine.
I am open to having you offer them and then cutting it later.
Just look around at the people who've been there before, and they'll help you out.
You've been a guest enough to know that I think if your contributions are just superfluous, I will cut it in editing to make it appear that you said nothing.
I've seen it.
So go ahead and say it.
Well, we could talk a little bit about the process of what'll actually happen at the caucus, like electing delegates, that kind of thing.
We can talk about that because I want to emphasize to people they need to become both ward delegates. Okay. There are two kinds of delegate slots. Go for both of them.
These are the details that matter.
Ward and city. Ward is for city council, and city is for mayor and park board. But take it away, Josh.
And BET. Yeah, so at your caucus, there will be, for starters, and this will be something you'll have to deal with at a caucus or convention, there will be a lot of introductory junk that is required because it's DFL rules and some of it's important for the mechanics of the caucuses, but probably not anything you need to worry about. They'll read some statements, they'll adopt rules and an agenda, which will almost certainly for a caucus be the default agenda that gets passed out. And then eventually you will elect convention delegates and alternates. Both ward and city convention delegates and alternates are elected on caucus night. Ward first. I would wager in most precincts, ward convention delegates will not be very competitive. City convention delegates and alternates may be more competitive. because for each ward there are 400 delegates for the ward divided between the precincts. For the city convention, there's 800 delegates for the entire city divided between all the precincts in the city. So it may be more competitive to get to the city convention, but you can always give it a shot. There's no harm in trying. You might be able to be a delegate or alternate. You can go to both conventions if you can get elected as a delegate or alternate to both, but you do not have to go to both. If there is only one of them that interests you, there is no requirement that you go to the other convention. Or if you can't make it for one of them, like that's fine. Just be a delegate to the convention that you want to go to and can go to.
So I keep saying this, but like, don't feel bad if you don't understand what's going on, because 50% of the time, I don't know what's going on. It's fine. Like the thing that separates...
And you're a political insider.
It's true. I'm an insider. And the thing that separates the DFL insiders from the regular people is, so regular people don't know what's going on, and DFL insiders don't know what's going on, but they don't care. Like, it doesn't bother them that they don't know what's going on. I'm just here on my phone waiting for you to get past the part where you ask for donations, get past the part where you ask for volunteers to do this or that. I'm just waiting for the real stuff to start. Like, you will know when the real stuff starts, and you have to pay attention.
Please do volunteer, though.
Don't volunteer. Don't donate. Don't do any of that shit.
That's one. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I would encourage people to volunteer and to donate if they can, because the precinct caucuses and conventions are entirely volunteer run. And if people do not volunteer and donate, there's very much a possibility that caucuses and conventions don't happen.
But Josh, that's like saying if I like bypass the donate to wildfire charities when I'm at Walgreens, the thing that pops up at the end, like, please donate to this charity. If I skip past that, like, bad things are going to happen. No, you could skip past it. Just skip past it.
I mean, there are a lot of wildfires going on, so
maybe I'll cut that part out where I talk about not donating to wildfire charities.
You're already attacking the firefighters. You don't need to be canceled even more over that.
Right.
John comes out as pro-fire.
I'm a political arsonist here.
Fire lives matter.
So I've got another shortcut. I've got my shortcut for going to caucus. Don't worry about what you don't know, because you don't need to know anything. Just know who you're supporting. Even at caucus, you don't really need to know who you're supporting, because you're just trying to become a delegate. And often it never comes up who you're supporting. It might, but often it doesn't. So you're just trying to become a delegate at the caucus. Another shortcut I have is we can simplify which wards are probably going to matter this year. And that's how I'm going to organize this. We got the open seats, right? 5, 8, and 11.
Correct.
Which could potentially be competitive, because incumbency comes with some big advantages that are hard to overcome. And people often do not challenge incumbents, or at least serious candidates who don't plagiarize their website don't challenge incumbents. And Ward 7. Ward 7, I think, is potentially... So we have incumbent Katie Cashman in Ward 7, but we have a very wealthy candidate who is an elected official on the park board challenging her. And so money plus connections plus already an elected official. And Ward 7 is just tough. That's a tough place. And so that's a competitive one too. Okay. So we're going to start with 5, 8, and 11. Let's start it out in Ward 5. Josh, what's going on in Ward 5? It's a melee.
Yeah, so the 3 open seat races. Ward 5 is, I guess, an extra open seat. There are, as of the time I'm saying this, 6 candidates in Ward 5. It's very possible that by the time you listen to this, there will be more candidates in Ward 5. Jeremiah Ellison is the incumbent and has been on the council since 2018. He is not running for re-election, and there are a lot of people who want his job. That includes Ethropic Burnett, Amber Frederick, Jovan Northington, Tanitha Pearl Warren, Miles Wilson, and Andrea Young. And all 6 of those candidates are seeking the DFL endorsement.
A note on pronunciation, atrophic. I learned.
Thank you.
I spoke with Atrophic for the podcast. You do not pronounce the TH sound on
Got it.
On the first part. Atrophic.
So atrophic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another shortcut, and this may be unfair to candidates, but I went and visited the websites of all the Ward 5 candidates. I think maybe it was back when there was only 5 candidates, but I visited them all, and there is only one candidate who has a decent website, and that's Atrophic Burnett. I don't know if that says anything, but like it's the kind of websites where you write people off as not serious candidates because of the condition of their website. Sorry, it's just a thing I do.
I will say things have not significantly changed since there were only 5 candidates in terms of websites, because the 6th candidate does not appear to have a website yet.
Okay. Well, it's still early. It's time for people to improve their websites. Let's move on to 8, Josh. Josh, you will have to recuse yourself from this one because you are campaign treasurer, right, for Soren Stevenson?
That's correct. I'm the treasurer for Soren Stevenson.
And a number of
Do you
other...
want me to still run down the candidates, or are you going to?
You will
remember them
recuse
all?
yourself
All right.
in spirit, but I still want you to put in the work.
Okay.
Name the other campaigns that you're campaign treasuring for, so people can know your biases.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the treasurer for the Omar Fatah for Mayor campaign, Katie Cashman in Ward 7, and Soren Stevenson in Ward 8.
Okay. What? Now people are going to use this to connect Katie Cashman to socialists. I wish I hadn't asked you to reveal your connections, because people say Josh Martin is treasurer for all of these campaigns and they're all DSA connected, even though she's not.
Well, I support a variety of different candidates, and they each have their own views, and they can speak for themselves on their priorities and platform and why you should support them. I think certainly there are similarities between the candidates I support. I would not say they agree on everything.
Okay, Josh, let me ask you this. Are you a socialist?
I think so. I am not a member of DSA, and I never have been. However, I do think all of Minneapolis could fairly describe me as DSA aligned.
Yeah, me too.
I'll put it that way.
That's the thing. All of Minneapolis, you are forcing all of us into socialism. We never asked for that, and you've placed us there. We're now all DSA aligned now because of your reckless, extreme rhetoric. You've made us all DSA aligned. We didn't want to be there, but now we are. Sorry. Ward 8, give us the rundown.
Sure. So in Ward 8, there are 3 candidates. Well, there are at least 2 candidates. Andrea Jenkins is the incumbent. She has served since 2018. She is not running for re-election. Running for the seat and both seeking the DFL endorsement are Josh Basai and Soren Stevenson, the candidate I'm treasurer for. He also ran in 2023 and came very close. There is allegedly a 3rd candidate. So in Maplight, there is a campaign finance registration for someone named Anthony Scott. Despite my best efforts and the efforts of a variety of other people, no one has been able to find more information about him. So whether this person is still running is somewhat unclear.
I will admit that Soren Stevenson is to the left of me. And there are some, so I read on his website, and there's a lot of policies where I'm like, wow, he's really on the ball there. He's taken a very detailed position that I like. A lot of land use stuff that I like on his website. But then I get to the part where it's he's describing a St. Paul style rent control at 3%, and it makes me nervous. And so I'm not in the tank for Soren Stevenson. There's a lot to like, and there are some things that make me alarmed. And I'll be talking to both Ward 8 candidates, if we're assuming there's just 2, Josh Basai and Soren Stevenson, soon.
Great.
And I hope to learn more. And I want to... I'm going to reveal on the podcast because none of them are going to listen, but maybe Josh will report back to Soren Stevenson. But this is what I want, because I've never met Josh Basai before. So with those kinds of candidates, like I want to suss out whether they are secret NIMBYs. Like, do you hate bike lanes? Are you going to go to war on behalf of preserving as much parking as possible? Keeping bike lanes out of the city, completely burning up the city's transportation action plan, stuff like that. That's what I want to suss out about Josh Basai. Also, things like, are you just going to be an automatic vote for Mayor Fry? Things like that. I don't know what question can I ask. Maybe don't give me too good an idea, because he will listen and hear about it. But like, how do you suss out whether a candidate is running to just be an automatic vote for Mayor Fry, aside from like checking the all of Minneapolis endorsement page to see who they like?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I mean, you could just run through like Andrea Corbin's questionnaire. Like that's, as far as I can tell, the purpose of that questionnaire is, will you support Jacob Fry and everything he says and does?
Yeah. I mean, there are some things that Mayor Fry has vetoed where I can understand why he vetoed that. There are some things that are like that. And like, I don't know. I don't necessarily want to use his vetoes as like the litmus test of whether you're a good candidate or not. But that's a good point. Similarly, we can talk about Ward 7 too. I guess we skipped Ward 7. Sure. Elizabeth Schaefer, who's running against incumbent Katie Cashman, had an email recently where she used your divided vote tracker, Josh Martin in
Correct.
the news. It trusted. The most trusted name in Google Docs is Josh Martin. She cited your divided vote tracker to point out Katie Cashman often does not vote the way Mayor Fry wants her to. Like, okay, well, that sounds fine to me. I don't know who in this city thinks Mayor Fry is just batting 1,000, right?
I mean, I think there might be some people in Ward 7 who feel that way.
Yeah. Like, I don't even think the people I like are batting 1,000. Like, it's fine.
No one's batting 1,000.
Yes.
There's always things you'll disagree with for any elected official.
And like, we should want a city council that stands up to Mayor Fry when necessary, because now that we have a strong mayor,
Yep.
Who do we have doing oversight on the strong mayor and all the terrible people he gets in bed with? It's going to be the council. Like, if you had a city council that's 100% rubber stamping what he wants, they'd be giving contracts to McAfee.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, I thought that was a childish way for her to frame it, and also like not productive. I don't know, even in Ward 7, which is, Lisa Goodman territory, that necessarily like makes you feel good, even if you have positive feelings about Mayor Fry. Like, I don't think a message that like, well, this person doesn't always support the mayor and they're bad. I don't know that like hits right, because there's no policy aspect to that at all. It's just like, why don't they always agree with the mayor? It's like,
right.
Are you going to outsource your vote to the mayor? Is that what you're running for?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, setting aside whether you support the mayor or support a particular council candidate, you would think it'd be more effective if, like, here are the particular issues where I disagree with my opponent on, and not just my opponent disagrees with the mayor, and I would agree with the mayor.
It just makes it sound like you are running as a person who does not think for yourself.
So since we started talking about the Ward 7 candidates, we'll go ahead and run through them. Katie Cashman is the incumbent in Ward 7. She was first elected in 2023, so she's the newest council member. She has three opponents. Elizabeth Schaefer, as you mentioned. There's also Paula Chesley and Corey Vest. And all four candidates are seeking the DFL endorsement.
Okay. Ward 11.
Ward 11 is another open seat because the incumbent, Emily Koski, who was first elected in 2021, is running for mayor, which we'll probably get to at some point here. There are two candidates running for her seat. For a while, it looks like there might only be one candidate, which seemed a little odd for an open seat, but there are two now. Miriam DeMello and Jameson Whiting.
Yeah. Jameson Whiting it was kind of a riddle because he was the only candidate for so long, and to the point that it makes you suspicious. And people on both sides saying nice
and
things
people
about him.
did get suspicious.
It's like it's a very like, whose side are you on kind of situation. Like, he was even complimented in the All of Minneapolis newsletter.
Yeah, and I mean it's easy for everybody to say nice things about someone when there is no opponent. I mean, in that situation, well, obviously this person is going to be the next city council member, so whether we like him or not, we're all going to have to work with him. Right. We'll see whether the dynamic changes now that he has an opponent, or maybe he's just such a strong candidate that he'll still be a unifying figure. It's hard to say. Miriam DeMello just announced like a few days ago.
Do we know what perspective she comes from? Like, is she the All of Minneapolis candidate dropping right before caucuses?
You know, looking at some of the issues she talks about on her website, that seems like a possibility.
So what issues are we thinking? Like, what code phrases is she using that like tips you off that she could be more conservative?
So when talking about housing, she talks about increasing supply while preserving the unique character of Minneapolis.
Okay, neighborhood character. Did she say anything about transportation?
Oh, she actually has one thing about transportation you might like: ensuring pedestrian safety and enhancing bike lanes that are functional for both cyclists and drivers.
You could play that.
The and drivers part you might not like.
Play that from two angles. Enhancing bike lanes that are functional for both cyclists and drivers. It makes me think of sometimes when people argue that the bike lane should go someplace else. That's how they would fix it. Because that's how we fix a bike lane for drivers. Put the bike lane someplace else. With no planning given to like, well, where would that be and when would it happen? No, I just don't want to hear. That's as far as I've thought. I give credit to anyone who is putting issues on their website as a candidate, because I go to too many candidate websites and it's nothing, right? I know it's early, but if you're giving me nothing this close to caucus, especially if you've been out for a while and you've got really sparse issue pages, I don't like it. I will give credit to Soren Stevenson and you know, he's been running since last time, so I guess like he's got a running start here, but pretty detailed set of issue pages there. I look forward to talking to Jameson Whiting and Miriam DeMello, possibly, if they say yes. It'll be a tip-off. If you say no, you are the bad candidate, obviously. If you won't talk to me, by definition, you are the bad candidate.
That's how you threaten them to come onto the podcast.
Right. Don't make me start a spreadsheet, a Josh Martin-style spreadsheet where I have a good column and a bad column. You don't want to end up in the bad column. I'm not above, holding grudges. We're just going to run through the wards now. We don't have to talk about Ward 1 and Elliott Payne because he's got no opponent. And
he has
everybody
no
likes
opponent.
Him. Everybody likes Elliott Payne.
And I want to be clear, not like he doesn't have a serious opponent. Elliott Payne has no opponent, period.
Okay. Ward 2, Robin Wansley has an opponent?
Several. So this is a bit of an interesting one, especially in terms of like talking about the caucuses. There are several council members who in the previous election were endorsed by Twin Cities DSA. Some of them are also running for the Twin Cities DSA endorsement this time. Most of those council members also seek the DFL endorsement. Robin Wansley does not. She has always described herself as an independent Democratic Socialist candidate and does not seek out the endorsement of the DFL. So it's a weird situation where the incumbent will not be one of the candidates seeking the DFL endorsement at the convention.
One of the things that happens in Ward 2 has a history of sending a non-DFL council member. They did it with Cam Gordon, who's in the Green Party for years. And so one of the things that happens there is I think Cam would organize, or someone would organize on Cam's behalf, people to turn out to caucus to make sure there was no endorsement. I remember that being a dynamic where
Yeah.
Cam
and-
loyalists would show up and make sure no one else could get it.
Correct. And that's like, I don't feel like I'm spilling any secrets here because she's kind of Robin's campaign has posted about this on social media.
Oh,
Like,
they're also
very
publicly
much,
organizing?
They're very much doing the same thing.
Oh,
They're
okay.
organizing people to go to the DFL precinct caucuses and vote for no endorsement. So the three candidates who are not Robin and who are seeking the DFL endorsement are Michael Baskins, who ran a last-minute write-in campaign against Robin in 2023. Alexander Foy, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name. It's Fooy. And then Shelley Mador is the latest and possibly most interesting opponent. She actually is a former state representative from, I believe, like the Apple Valley area, and at one point ran for Congress in CD2 against Republican John Klein unsuccessfully.
Can we move to the mayor's race? Because I'm getting so bored by these council races.
Do you want to go through the other wards? No?
Do we make people wait to the end to hear what we say about the mayor's race? Because I'm thinking we're only on 2.
That's how you get people to keep listening.
Okay,
John.
well, keep listening, people. We're just gonna slog through these wards.
All right, I'll try to go faster through the other wards.
In Ward 3, I am extreme. I'll let you do the intro after, but I cannot get into a candidate who ran for the state legislature and city council simultaneously. I'm not doing it. I make snap judgments about people. I can't do it. So Emilio Rodriguez, I can't do it. You can't run for state legislature and city council simultaneously. Also, who's the other guy? The Green Party guy?
Marcus Mills.
Marcus Mills. I mean, it didn't work last time, and I don't think it's going to work this time. So I think Ward 3 needs a viable candidate, and I'm not seeing any. Against Michael Rainville. There's my story. We're going to skip through it, Josh. I'm not going to force you to go through the Ward 3 unless you want to add like opinion to what I've just said.
No, it's fine. Michael Rainville is the incumbent. Marcus Mills and Emilio Rodriguez are challenging him. All three are seeking the DFL endorsement. If in case anyone is wondering what happened to Jacob Thomas, he was at one point running for Ward 3 City Council, but then dropped out of that race.
Okay, Ward 4, Marvina Haynes and running against incumbent Latricia Vital.
That's correct. You got it.
That's going to be tough in Ward 4. Wish you all the best to all the candidates in Ward 4. Ward 6?
Yeah, so in Ward 6, Jamal Osman is the incumbent. He was elected in a special election in 2020. For a while, it seemed he might not have an opponent. He does now have an opponent, Mohammed Hassan. I'm not sure whether Hassan is seeking the DFL endorsement. Doesn't seem to have a website yet, just a Facebook page. He was one of the many candidates in the same special election where Jamal Osman was elected, but ended up dropping out before the finale.
We talked about Ward 9. That's the ward with the plagiarism candidate and Dan Orban, the Hungarian dictator.
Who are both running against incumbent Jason Chavez.
Ward 10, my ward, home of the Wedge.
Home of the Wedge.
Incumbent Aisha Chugtai, who's the council vice president, is running against Lydia Millard. I'm going to try to talk to both of them. I booked scheduled Lydia Millard for an episode coming up in the next few weeks.
All right.
Ward 12.
We did 11. Ward 12. So Ward 12 is the incumbent is Oreen Chowdhury, who was elected in 2023. She so far has one opponent, Becca Thompson, who is Park Board Commissioner in District 2, which is not in Ward 12.
Yeah, I forgot how funny this is, Josh. I was worried about the slog through the wards, but then we got to Ward 12.
Forgot about Ward 12.
And I just can't stop laughing internally about the Ward 12 situation.
Yeah, in fact, Park Board District 2 is about as far away as you can get from Ward 12 while still being in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm. As she attacks the incumbent for not living in the city. Is that what her claim is? She says that Orange Chowdhury does not live in Minneapolis, is her claim.
I think she said not in the ward. I'm not sure if she said the city. I also have no idea what facts she's basing this on.
Right. It's
to
completely
be clear.
It's completely bogus accusation. I'm just saying the person who represents currently an entirely different part of the city, running for Ward 12, is accusing the incumbent of not living in the ward, while she very clearly does not live in the ward because she's an elected official from a different part of the city.
She says doesn't actually live here, and I'm putting that in finger quotes, so it's not clear exactly whether she's saying the ward or the city in her not backed up claims.
Another thing she's not backing up with any evidence is the part where people begged her to come to Ward 12 and run for office. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe anyone begged Becca Thompson to come home to Ward 12 and save the city. I very much doubt that.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. And she has recently talked about how her family has lived there since the late 1800s, although she does not live there currently. She says she will move there prior to the beginning of the school year, which means she'll be all compliant legally. I do think that means she would have to step down from her park board seat, so we'll see what happens with that.
Like, the whole dynamic there is not great. Nobody, like, in her announcement, she's like, I'm coming home. Like, how are you running for office in a place where you don't live? I think she's realizing that that's not great. And another thing, like, people are trying to run this very 2021 style. They're defunding the police. These crazy socialists are defunding the police. And they're saying it about people like Katie Cashman, who's not in DSA, who voted for the police contract, who voted for the police budget that's $50 million above what it was in 2022 when Chief O'Hara took his job.
Yeah, it has to be 60 million to be not defunding the police.
Right. We're talking about police cuts. And when they talk about police cuts, what they're really saying is the police budget was only increased by like 10 million this year and not 10,500,000. That
Right.
qualifies as a police cut in our political rhetoric in Minneapolis. When you hear Chief O'Hara talk about it, when you hear all of Minneapolis talk about it, if they reference police cuts that candidates made, they're saying the police budget only increased by 10 and not the 10.5 million or whatever it was that we wanted. Like, we only got 95% of the increase we wanted this year. There were no cuts. Like, I measure budgets by the total budget and not like which line item you wish had been approved but wasn't. Because all that money for the police department, let's admit it, is all fungible, and they're going to spend it in the places they want to spend it. MPD has never been shy about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we'll have to find out whether the horse police actually go away.
right. Yeah. But they're dropping like flies, Josh.
Yeah, and then Ward 13 Linnea Palmisano is running unopposed.
Okay. Before we get to mayor, let's do park board, District 4. District 4 at least. I don't want to talk
District
about
4.
Just District
Yeah.
4.
Well, maybe at large,
Yeah,
too.
maybe at large. District 4 has a candidate. Finally, a candidate.
Well, it
that I
has
can
3
believe.
candidates.
But a candidate, when I say candidate,
Yeah.
I mean a candidate that me,
One particular candidate.
John Edwards, can believe in.
Yeah.
And that is, I don't want to come out too hard for him because I don't want to scare people away from Jordan Like, who is running in District 4. I will certainly be endorsing Jordan Like. Formerly Jim Jorts on Twitter. That used to be his handle on Twitter. Many times
Some
have I
people insist on only calling him Jim Jorts.
I do. Many times I've forgotten what his real name is because I'm like, Jim Jorts. What's his name? And I search for his handle. It's not there anymore on Twitter because he changed it. He no longer goes by Jim Jorts.
Oh, he didn't think Jim Jorts for Park Board was a professional sounding campaign.
How about James Jorts?
James Jorts.
James Jorts. But
James Jonathan Jorts III.
So I respect him a ton. I had him on to talk about the Sioux Line Garden issue. And like, I was impressed. I like him. No question who I will be supporting in District 4. Sorry, alternatives.
So in addition to your favorite Jordan Lake, I should just mention for listeners that also running are Andrew Gebo and Jody Winan. And this is an open seat because, as we mentioned earlier, the incumbent Elizabeth Schaefer is running for City Council in Ward 7.
I'm announcing my park board endorsement in District 4 early so that I don't have to talk to candidates in District 4. I want them to say no when I invite them. So I'm trying to weed out extra work for me.
Yeah, most of the other park board districts are not interesting. It just, the incumbent is running for re-election. They have no opponent yet. District 2 is a little weird. Charles Rucker is moving out of at-large and going to run for District 2 because Becca Thompson's running for City Council.
I call that all of Minneapolis musical chairs, where they move one candidate to a different district and like upgrade a park board member to City Council. It's all of Minneapolis musical chairs.
And then for at-large, which is the only other one where there's like actually multiple candidates running. At large, there are ultimately 3 seats that will be elected. There are currently maybe 4 candidates. I guess Meg Forney hasn't officially announced yet whether she's running for re-election, but if she is, Meg Forney. And then the other incumbent that's still running again for at large would be Tom Olson. And then the 2 new candidates are Michael Wilson, who's seeking the DFL endorsement, and Adam Schneider, who is a Green Party candidate.
I will say the 2 park board members who speak to my issues consistently are Becky Alper and Tom Olson with an E. Tom Olson with an E.
Correct.
So send them back to the park board because we've really only got two of 9 that are impressing me.
And BET is also not interesting right now. The incumbents are running for election and no one else so far.
Okay.
Mayor, the moment we've all been waiting for. So there are technically 8 candidates for mayor.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, and
let me
it
see
will probably be like double that by election day.
Let's do a game, Josh. I will try to name them all.
You will try to name all the mayoral candidates, all right?
Mayor Fry. He's
okay, you got the easy one. Yep.
Dwayne Davis.
Yep.
Emily Koski.
Yep.
Jazz Hampton. Omar Fateh.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it gets a little trickier now.
Brenda Short fired her campaign manager in the newspaper.
That's correct.
That's how I think of her.
Yep.
We're up at 6. I got 2 more.
Got 2 more.
Wow. Have I, Josh? Do you think I've heard their names ever?
I think you've heard at least one of their names at one point. The other one, maybe.
Captain Jack. Is he running?
No. I mean, not that I know of. You never know.
Bob again?
Bob again is not running yet. I assume he'll be running eventually.
I think I'm going to have to give up. I don't know who the other candidates are.
Okay, so the last 2 are Howard Dotson.
Oh, geez, the karaoke candidate. Yeah, I definitely heard about him.
Karaoke candidate.
He was apparently involved in like real bad legal trouble for making shit up and spouting off at a council meeting in like Brooklyn Park or something.
I had not heard that.
Yeah, he lost a defamation lawsuit.
Anyway, and then the last one is Laverne Turner, who is a Republican candidate. And I want to be clear by that, I don't mean like a DFLer who has more conservative politics than I like. Like, I mean, he is actually running as a Republican candidate in Minneapolis. And then all of those candidates, except for obviously Laverne Turner and Howard Dotson, the other 6 are seeking the DFL endorsement. So it'll be an interesting city convention.
I spoke with a wise person whose name everyone would recognize if I said it, just to like, I want to name drop, but I don't want to say who it was who told me this. Like
we'll take your word for it that they're important.
I know important people. They are a noteworthy individual in Minneapolis politics. And they were saying about the mayor's race that they have to coordinate well. The challengers to the mayor have to coordinate well in terms of their focusing their fire in their particular lanes, not trying to be like candidates that they aren't, not trying to own every issue, but kind of own their particular set of issues when it comes to their campaign and how they talk about the mayor's deficiencies. So I thought that was interesting.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
What are you hearing, Josh? You're a treasurer for nearly every campaign in the city. What's the scuttlebutt?
Well, I think the conventional wisdom throughout, and I don't think anything has really happened to change this, is that there's 4 major candidates for mayor, Fry, and obviously, and then the 3 challengers being Dwayne Davis, Omar Fata, and Emily Koski. You can maybe make a case for Jazz Hampton if you wanted to, but I think that's been the conventional wisdom since this race started, and I don't think anything has happened since then that's really changed that trajectory.
So the guy who composed and performed the Wedge Live podcast theme song, Anthony Kasper, is a school friend of Jazz Hampton and speaks highly of him. But I'm trying to figure out what is the point of this campaign? I feel like we filled all the slots, and I don't know where you fit in, really.
I mean, he could be banking on maybe one of the other campaigns will flounder and he'll be able to swoop in on that opening. I should say I don't have any knowledge that that's going to happen with any of the campaigns, but just in theory, that's not the craziest idea. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Jazz Hampton is thinking.
Well, I think we're here at the end. Have we missed anything? Is there anything we should talk about?
I don't think so. I think we covered all the races. So yeah, I'll just remind people again to make sure to go to your caucus and try to be a delegate at your convention, and don't listen to John. Please volunteer and please donate if you can.
April 8th, right?
That's correct. Yep, April 8th for the caucuses. Convention dates vary. They'll let you know when your convention is. MinneapolisDFL.org for more information. It's really easy. Don't be intimidated. It's okay to not know anything. Just show up, accept that you will not know what's going on most of the time, and be ready to step in when it matters. Just become a delegate. City convention, ward convention, accept any delegate slot you can acquire, and wield your power. Become the ultimate super lobbyist in an election year here in Minneapolis. Okay, thank you, Josh. I'm your host, John Edwards. Yep. This has been the Wedge Live podcast. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.